guys, it's me Rebecca. So this will be the start of another weekly vlog, and as you saw, I did go to the library book, so I wasn't able to go yesterday when the sale began, so I went today. It was just a sale that was in my town, and yeah. And I also did go for a bit of a walkthrough. It was quite breezy, I would say, and yeah, other than that, just done some work and all that. I was planning to film my April wrap-up today because I don't think I'm going to be finishing the book I'm currently reading before April ends. It's currently the 27th, so yeah. Speaking of which, today I did finish one book I did. I was still reading The Luminaries today, this morning. I had like 30 pages left, and I finished that this morning, and I did like it. I gave it 4 stars. I did eventually get into it, so yeah. And more of my thoughts on that one will be in my April wrap-up, which I believe will be coming out before this vlog. So yeah, but this morning before lunch, I did start Black River Orchard by Chuck Wendig. And this is about this town where there's this orchard, and in that orchard there are 7 most unusual trees, and from those trees grow a new sort of apple, strange, beautiful, with skin so red it's nearly black. Take a bite of one of these apples and you will desire only to devour another and another. You will become stronger, more vital, more yourself, you will believe, but then your appetite for the apples and their particular gifts will keep growing and become darker. This is what happens when the townfolk discover the secret of the orchard. Soon it seems that everyone is consumed by obsession with the magic of the apples, and what's the harm if it's making them all happier, more confident, more powerful? And yeah, this seems like it's just a town that's obsessed with these apples. And so far we are really, I'm only 50 pages in, and we are getting this set up. It seems like this orchard is run by this man named Dan, he's continuing on his father's dream of running a successful orchard, and we see that Dan previously just hasn't had the most success. Like, he's in debt, he's at risk of losing his house, he's at risk of being charged by the bank with there being no money in his account. Like, he's putting a lot at risk to make his father's dream, come true. And he doesn't need the money to pay off his debts, but also to get his daughter into college and make sure she does enough to carry on these steps, and that. And I do have to say, his daughter, she's like this influencer, or a wannabe influencer, who posts her life on all of these social media platforms. Some that are like, of real time, of our world, I guess, of things, because Chuck Wendig, he does mention Instagram, he mentions TikTok, he also mentions a couple social media platforms he created. Dan wants her help in creating the name for these apples and marketing them, which I kind of do like, because she does have experience of it. And she's like your typical teenager that doesn't really care. She just wants to make sure she's able to fulfill her dream that she has for herself, for her boyfriend. Yeah. And also with this story, we are introduced to this couple who just moved to town, Emily and Meg, and almost immediately you can tell there's a bit of a power unbalance in that relationship, in a sense. Meg is the one who has a job, while Emily is like the stay-at-home. Like, Meg has Emily unpack their stuff and kind of try. It seems like it tells Emily not to work, and that's really, there's something that's the unspoken thing, which I am quite curious about what it is. And also, it seems like Meg is the one who makes the decisions in this relationship, in a sense. She decided where they would marry, she decided where they would move, and it doesn't seem like she's taken Emily's opinion into consideration at all. And as well, Emily, in a way, she is isolated in this house because with the fact she doesn't have a job, they also have one car which Meg uses to get to work, so Emily has to rely on Meg's mother, who is retired and has a car. So yeah, they live by a river, but Emily is afraid of water. And where I got to, she was gonna live with the idea of going in a kayak. So I'm curious to see how that goes. And with that relationship, I'm like iffy about, because it seems quite unhealthy. Like, it doesn't seem like they're equals. Emily seems content or used to this relationship, so yeah, that's all my thoughts so far. Right now, I'm not really into this story, just because I think this is typically what happens to me when I finish a book and then I try to start another book the same day. I don't know, but it is what it is, and yeah. And also at the library sale, I did end up getting 3 books. I got White Sargasso Sea by Jean Weiss, which I believe is like kind of a prequel to Jane Eyre. It's like about the woman in the attic, about Bertha, and I'm just very much intrigued, considering I did recently read Jane Eyre. So. The next is Memoirs from the House of the Dead by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I'm Eastern European and I cannot pronounce Russian names, my word. Who I am, like, that is my heritage. But this is about, in this almost documentary account of his own experience of Hano servitude in Siberia, Dostoevsky describes the physical and mental suffering of the convicts described in the degradation in relentless detail. The ingrate procedure whereby the men stripped for the bath without removing their 10-pound leg fetters is an extraordinary tour de force. And terror and resignation, the 1 pages of his psychopath, the brief serene interlude of Christmas Day are evoked by Dostoevsky, writing several years after his release with a strikingly uncharacteristic detachment. And yeah, I'm very much intrigued about that. And lastly, I got The Last Painting of Sarah DeVoice by Dominic Smith. And this is about this painting that's hung in the apartment of this... Oh, I did not read that first paragraph. Of this lawyer, and he has this art history student kind of make a forger of it, and then the painting and the forgery are in the same shipment to Australia. So yeah, I'm just very much intrigued about that. And I was talking about this in the synopsis. There's the Amsterdam, New York, and Sydney section. I only went the last 2, so oopsie. But yeah, and yeah, I think that's all for now. So it's the next day, and I've just done some work and whatnot, and I did do some reading of Black River Orchard, and I'm on page 154. So far, I'm definitely intrigued about these apples. Like, they seem like they have some sort of healing property in a sense. Dan's daughter Kaya has a boyfriend named Marco, and Marco was on a fast track of getting a scholarship. He was on a track team until he breaks his ankle so badly during a race where it's like his foot is like almost, his ankle is like almost dangling off. Like, I think it is mentioned in here that the skin was holding the ankle up, and he did have to have surgery, like where they put bolts and nuts and whatnot in it, and he goes to an appointment just to see what it is like. And I should also mention that this should have been the end of his, like, I guess, track career. Like, he would have lost his scholarship and whatnot. But magically it seems like his ankle is healing and it's rejecting the bolts and the nuts. And he will be able to run again. Like, it's this almost unheard of. And like, that might have been like, oh, he's lucky, like he's young, like he's 17, 18 years old. But then we see Dan, who later when he's going on to the orchard, how he suddenly cannot see until he takes off his glasses, which he describes as like Coke bottle glasses, like such a thick prescription, and it's like he can see fine. Like he is also described as looking incredible as you can younger and whatnot. Like it's like, I don't know, making people look like an ideal version of themselves, which is something I do find quite interesting as well. With these apples, they seem to not really be following the, I guess, normal harvest schedule. Like the whole harvesting thing and how grocery store apples are preserved, like it's discussed about in this book. And usually apples, and well, they start to, I guess, flower in July, and their season ends in November, and it seems like Dan's apples are still thriving, and there's no flowers in them, so and it's like, you see that effect it has on the people who do eat the apples, and since a rival of his suddenly is nice to him, for I am quite suspicious on that one. And yeah, and with the lovely couple Emily and May, I just got to the part where we learn about what this unspeakable thing was, and yeah, I guess them moving to this small town away from Philadelphia is Emily's punishment for what happened, because she is, I guess, the one at fault for what happened. Well, not at fault, but yeah, she is the one who did that unspeakable thing, which you can imagine what it is when it comes to a married couple. Yeah. Let me see how she... No, wait, I didn't mention this. Oops. But she was on that boat, and it drifted off, and she fell out of the boat, and she stepped on his skull, and there's an entire skeleton in the water. They were able to identify who this person was through dental records. A guy named Walt, who was, I'm not kidding, an apple hunter, which apparently he was just looking for apples that, like, lots of variations of apples or forgotten variations of them that we don't really know about anymore, that might not exist, that might be very rare and whatnot. And Emily teams up with a friend of Walt who kind of feels bad because they two did have a bit of a falling out prior to his death, and it seems like it has been 5 years since he had gone missing. So I'm still just very much intrigued on how the storyline will come to connect with Dan's. And I also, speaking of Dan, I also found it quite interesting how he was able to get the I guess his land back after the first judge ruled in the other guy's favor. He's in a hotel in New York when this gentleman comes to see him, and is like, oh yeah, here's the ruling from another judge. And the thing about it is like, police and whatnot are going for this hotel, trying to find this gentleman who disappears. Like he jumps off the balcony and dies, and yet his body's never found, it seems like, or it was destroyed. It didn't seem like it was burned into smithereens. But the strange thing about him is that people died after he touched them, and the police they think poison after reviewing security cameras, but there's no poison found in their bloodstream or anything when they did tests. It's like, what is this? Who is this guy? And as well with the fact he got on a flight from Las Vegas, even though there was no evidence or no footage of him boarding the flight. So it's like, who the hell was this man who gave Dan his land back? Like, why? It's quite weird. So yeah, I guess what I'm definitely thinking about these apples and seeing like how far people will go to get a taste of it when they do have a taste. And I do say to people read them, because some people in this novel, like, they either don't like fruits like Kala or another character we meet, or they're allergic to apples. Like they're not, from what I gathered, they're not allergic to the fruit themselves, but they will have a reaction when they eat apples. So I'm wondering what will happen once they eat apples, and yeah. And yeah, I think that's all for now. That's all for my thoughts. And I'll see you next. So it's the next day, and I've just done some work and whatnot. And I did do some reading of Blackbird for Orchard, and I'm on page 232. And I definitely am liking the whole, like, I guess, discussion on, like, with apples, we've been known as so American, and with the fact, like, that they were really brought over by the Europeans. Like, they were done really, like, native apples that were, like, I guess eatable from what I gathered, and how really apples were used in the whole colonizing, like how Europeans planted apple orchards to, like, claim land from the native people, and it drove the native people out. Like, I just like how that's a discussion, because, like, land is important, and as well how apple trees grow, and how some people are very, like, serious, I guess, about these trees. Like, when Walt's friend, who's helping Emily investigate his death, and then named John, I think it is. Yeah, he is allowed by Walt's daughter to go and take a branch, so he's able to plant the trees. And when he goes there, he sees that she cut down all of these trees, and he mourns the loss of these trees. Like, I just found that a bit funny. So it is also, like, I guess with the loss of these trees, it is actually him saying goodbye to his friend permanently. So yeah, it's like the whole thing, you know. So we see more of the man in the white suit who visited Dan in New York. He visits Emily and tries to discourage her from investigating. Someone was like, who the hell is this guy? Like, what? He's so, I guess, mysterious, just because Emily tries to record their conversation, and somehow her phone, something happens to her phone, where it's like you only see the back of his head, and when it do start talking, the video becomes corrupted, and it's like, who is this guy? And he might have had a play in the death of someone who was helping Walt investigate something. So that's also interesting. And speaking of, we do learn who might have killed Walt. Emily is at this fancy dinner party with Meg when she sees a satchel that might have belonged to Walt there, and it's like, this person killed Walt. I'm not gonna say who. Yeah, I'm curious on what will happen after that, if this person will target Emily now that she knows what they did. They said they had reason to do it, like they kind of in a way try to justify the death on something. And speaking of this whole dinner party, it was really fucking weird. It's like one of those elite fancy parties, like the people who come from money, either rich or old in this community. It's usually the old white man, and it's like an all boys sort of club. And at this dinner party, we see Dan, who his father wanted to be a member of this group, and his father thought they were his friends until they backstabbed him. And Dan initially was like, he was invited to this dinner because of his apples, but he was gonna show him the plans to his orchard and then be like, fuck you, I'm not gonna join your this organization. Until then he decides, yeah, we're gonna find him. I need the protection from something. I just want to be part of the elite, I guess so. But the whole thing was very weird and quite culty in a sense. When Dan and his date, this woman named John, who he had a thing with in high school, there are one of his apples at each of the placemats, and at the same time, they all take up the apples, eat them, and it's like we see two people, Joni, who's not fan of apples, and Emily, who's allergic to them, not eat them, and they're just like, what the hell is going on here? Like, it was just, in a way they're talking about these apples, like, it's so good, it's so good, it's like, they're obsessed with them, it's like, it genuinely feels like a code for these damn apples, and as well, it seems like even Marco is obsessed with these apples. Like we see how he spends all of his free time helping Dan at the orchard, and how Carla doesn't really like that because she feels like he's not taking their future seriously. Like Carla has had this entire future written up in her head where they would both go to this nice university and get out of their town, and she is obsessed with getting their applications in at the early admission date thing. And she doesn't think he's taking it seriously anymore, and it's like almost frightens her, this change. And we see how she did try to eat these apples, and she hallucinated, and it seems like that is the thing that's happening, like people just seeing things that aren't there, things not making sense. Like we see John when he's bearing a box of Walt's things, and he sees Walt's dead head, well, beheaded, and what? So yeah, a lot of strange things are happening. Yeah, I'm just intrigued on where we go next. And yeah, I think that's all for now. I just remembered one of those things I wanted to discuss. It is also like the fact that these apples aren't just affecting humans. Like we see how this cat who somehow managed to get by with an apple, like, it changed and became a cat that another cat didn't recognize anymore in the house, and it's a bit funny. And then comes upon this cat after it's killed, I think a raccoon or something of the sort, and it's like the cat is acting like it's a guardian of the orchard, and that's how Dan sees himself, like he's supposed to protect this orchard and protect these trees, and it's like, yeah, I don't know, I just think it's a bit entertaining, really, and a bit like, what? Like, what's with these people? Like, what is with these apples? That's really what I'm curious about. And yeah, now that's all for now. So it's the next day, and I had to run a couple of errands. I had a doctor's appointment this morning. Nothing bad, that's, a standard once a year sort of preventative care thing. And everything went smoothly with that one. I also did some work today. I filmed and edited my April wrap-up, so that went well. And yeah, and besides that, I did do some reading of Black River Orchard, and I'm on page 316. And things are definitely getting weird. I would say, like, something happened in this book, and a death occurred, and I just didn't really feel anything. Like, I felt sad for the spouse of this person, but yeah, I just find I'm not really connecting with the characters. I'm finding, like, the changes in them intriguing, but I'm like, I don't know, not really caring, unfortunately. And speaking of changes, we see how those who like the apples, those who do eat the apples, how they're changing in very negative ways. How Marco, he's kind of given up on the idea of college to help Kyle's dad with the orchard. How Kyle, when she expresses like she doesn't like the apples, her father, like, he basically is like, he'll isolate her, he'll cut her off completely, like he'll take everything from her, make her life miserable. Like, it's like in a way so out of character from what we've seen from him. That's like, what the hell? And we see with Emily how Meg, when she Emily was keeping a journal and changes with Meg, and Meg found it, and she basically isolated Emily completely, like cancelled her bank cards, like credit and debit, cancelled her phone service thing, slashed her tires, the whole thing, and is isolating her. What else is in that? Yeah, also changed her passwords. Like, we see how those who eat apples, they are doing things in their power to kind of, it's like they're going against those who don't eat apples, and it's almost like we see how Kaya and her friends, like, they're describing, like, they're drug addicts because, like, they love how the apples make them feel, like they feel healthier and more powerful, and they are very much aware, like, they are changing in themselves. Like, if they hurt themselves, there won't be even a scar in a couple of days' time. Like, you see with Meg, she stabs herself with a fork, and it's like, in a couple of days, there won't even be a scar, and it's like, so deranged, and it's like, so interesting seeing these changes. And I mentioned yesterday that the feeling with that dinner party being culty, it got more culty with, like, after the dinner, like, a select few, including Meg and Dan, like, stayed. They were led to a room where they were told to put on these masks, and then they went to slaughter a cow in some sort of ritual, and I was just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, it just got weird. And we do also, and sorry, I'm going over the place, but that's just really this novel, it's going over the place. But we see how after the ritual occurs, then he feels more powerful, and initially he wanted to decline being a part of this group to basically give them the finger and get revenge for his dad, but it's like, I could use their protection if something happens. And yeah, we got a flashback with the man in the white suit. Apparently he's been around a while, and I would say since the Prohibition era in the 1920s, and he basically entices people to destroy these native apples, these apples that don't taste good, because, like, he's very, like, he's basically like the person of the, I guess, a personification of the American dream. However, it's the American dream that doesn't involve native ideas, that involve, like, very European ideas. Like, this is your standard American dream, and he wants to achieve that, and he wants, in a way, create this new America that has no native influence to it. And I think that's just interesting. So like, even though I'm not connecting to these characters, and I think we do get, like, even though I'm not connecting to these characters in this, I don't know, I'm very much intrigued in seeing how the characters who do adapt both, how they're changing in very negative ways, and how it's affecting those who are not eating the apples. And also, I am wondering what will happen next, because Kaya, as well as two of her friends who haven't eaten apples, they want to expose what's happening in their town on social media, and they're very much aware people will think it's a hoax, they won't be taken seriously, but still they have to do something to raise awareness. So I'm very much intrigued on that. I'm like, I guess the backlash they'll face from those who do eat apples, because a lot of very powerful people in the town are eating apples. Like, we see how John, when he goes to the police station to try and report what Emily told him, he's not taken seriously. He's even told that if he comes again and does the same thing, he'll be arrested for harassing this person that he's accusing of murdering Walt. And it's like the police chief, he's in a way under Dan's thumb with the fact he's obsessed with apples, and it's like, it's not a high, but it's just the feeling like they can't live without their apples. Like, they're also rationing them, whereas before they would just eat them whenever, like, they're rationing them and they don't want to, so that they don't run out of it. And it's like, I kind of get the whole like with, I guess, it being almost like a drug, like something to get high off, something like you do or to because it makes you feel a certain way and you want that feeling to last. So yeah, I think for me I'm just intrigued about what's gonna happen next, and yeah, I think that's all for now. So I'll see you when I see you. So it's the next day and I've just done some work and whatnot, and I just went on a walk and it was quite warm. Like I'm wearing this shirt, which is quite, I would say quite light material wise, and it is long sleeve, but and I did have to roll it up. So yeah, and I did do some reading of Black River Orchard, and I'm on page 420. And I do have to say, I like how Emily's experience in, like, she was in social work in a way, like, she worked in, I think it was, like, some sort of community center, giving support to people going through tough times, either they were getting support at home, or because they're LGBT, or they're dealing with drug addiction of their own, like, how that's coming into play in this novel, because she recognizes in Meg the symptoms of a drug addiction, and she can't help herself but to want to help Meg, even though Meg is controlling and like to an extreme. Like Emily, she has this opportunity to run away, to get away from Meg a couple of times, and yet she can't bring herself to do so, mainly because she loves Meg. I mean, she's her wife, and yes, Emily messed up in the past, but she still wants to make amends. She has her own regrets, and she wants the woman she knew back. Like, she wants to recognize her wife again, and she recognizes these, I guess, symptoms in her, and she now is basing the way she's treating Meg based off her experience. Like, she's treating Meg like another drug addict. Like, we see later in the novel, when Meg, I guess, gets her fix of the apples, like, she treats her like she's supporting the addiction, supporting this bad thing, instead of trying to help her overcome this addiction. And as well, we see, like, when Dan's apples, like, they're not blossoming, and because it's like the off season, and because something's a bit off with the orchard, which I'll get to later, Meg goes through what's essentially withdrawal, and Emily recognizes this withdrawal. Like, I don't know, I just find it quite interesting that this is coming together. I don't know. But with Dan's apples, like, some things wrong with the orchard are not blossoming at all. Like, it's a few weeks into the thing. I think it's the April, actually, this the timeline. And the trees are not blossoming at all. Like, there's not a flower or anything. And people, they're desperate for these apples. And by not having these apples, they are going into withdrawal. Like, we see people getting angry at each other, demanding that they give them their apples, and like accusing one another of hoarding apples. And it's just, yeah, I mean, I sound crazy with saying it out loud, I know, but yeah, we see like how they no longer feel powerful or healthy or different. Like, we see how Dan, he's reverting back to who he was before the apples. Like, when he was eating the apples, he wasn't sleeping. He didn't have the need to sleep. He didn't need to wear his glasses, and now he's sleeping till midday, and he now needs his glasses. And he's almost given up hope until the man in a white suit visits him again, and he learns some things about his father's death that I'm not gonna get into just because it is quite spoilery. But he ends up confronting this person who was a rivaling like person, like orchard owner, I think it is, who he kind of signed into a business deal with, but this person has taken some control of the orchard from them, and then does something, and well, he discovers something by the orchard that gives him an idea, and he uses this person to utilize this idea, and we see like in this really fripping weird ritual scene where like everyone in town who's been eating the apples, been obsessed with the apples, they just come to the orchard. Like no one didn't invite them. They just like had a feeling that they had to go to the orchard. Like even Meg, like Emily discovers that Meg's car is still in her driveway, that Meg's shoes are still in that house. Like they just up and left their own houses and went to dance to be witnesses to this ritual. And it was this, what happened was this like, what the, oh my word, let's just say someone's like basically impaled by the apples, not apples, by the roots of the trees, and I guess this and it's like a sacrifice, a proper human sacrifice to give life back to the orchard, and yeah, just bring life back and this apples to go back. But with this happening, like then being like the center figure of the zone, with him donning this mask that, and someone in a previous generation war that gave them power, he now feels the same power. Like he feels like he is more than human. Like it's like he thinks he's like some sort of god, that he's above everyone else. And I'm intrigued to see how that goes. And you see how Marco, like when he witnesses what happened, it almost breaks this curse. Like he's like, he realizes how insane everything is, and he is reverting back to who he was before the apples, and we see how scared he is, and I don't know, like he's completed a withdrawal cycle, I guess. Like he's back to who he was before the apples, which I'm also intrigued to see how that goes, and see what changes occurs in him, because he did have that fracture, so I'm intrigued to see how that will and now impact him. Like if he will have the bolts not reinstalled in his foot, or I don't know, I'm just interested in seeing what happens next, especially with Kaya and her friends posting a video, and Kaya running away after witnessing somewhat of what happened in her story of Marco. Like things are happening, so yeah, I'm now just intrigued in seeing what happens next, because this it is like, what the absolute fuck is going on? Like yeah. And yeah, I think that's all of my thoughts for now, and I should probably mention, I did want to earlier, but if you see like a spot like here, yeah, that is it, and yeah, I'm just gonna point it out now because I only comments, and yep. But yep, and yeah, I think that's all for now. As you saw, I did go out today. I went to a library book sale where I did get a couple books, and then they go to walk around kind of like in that town green where near the library, and yeah, it was quite nice. So it was quite not chilly this morning, but quite cool, and it's gotten hotter since then. And yeah, and on my way home, I did some errands. I had to do grocery shopping and whatnot, and yeah, otherwise it's quite nice day. Now it's quite hot, so I'm glad I got home when I did. Well, I am sad because I forgot to buy ice cream. Like, it's that hot I wanted, so. Yeah. But the books I got today were The Housekeeper and the Professor by Oko Agawala. I'm so sorry if I butchered that name. Let me see if this was translated. Yes. Translated by Stephen Schneider. And this is about this professor who's brilliant, and he has a particular problem ever since a traumatic head injury he has lived with only 80 minutes of short-term memory. She is an straight young housekeeper with a 10-year-old son who is hired to care for him. And every morning, as the professor and a housekeeper are introduced to one another anew, a strange and beautiful relationship blossoms between them. Who he cannot hold his memories for long. His brain is like a tape that begins to erase itself every 80 minutes. The professor's mind is still alive with elegant equations from the past, and the numbers in all of their articulate order reveal a sheltering and poetic world to both the housekeeper and her young son. The professor is capable of discovering connections between the simplest of quantities, like the housekeeper's shoe size, and the universe at large, drawing their lives even ever closer and more profoundly together, even as his memory slips away. So yeah, I'm very much intrigued about that one. Next is the second book I got, really, is The Beautiful Ones by Silvia Moreno Garcia. And this is about Nina's chance to join Wangs and the society, and she's doing this through the courtesy of her well-connected cousin and his calculating wife. But the grand season has thus begun, and already Nina's debut has gone disastrous away. She has always struggled to control her telekinesis. Neighbors call her the Witch of Old House. The haphazard manifestations of her powers make her the subject of gossip. When entertainer Hector Alvray arrives to town, Nina is dazzled. A telekinetic like her, he has traveled the world performing his talents for admiring audiences. He sees Nina not as a witch, but ripe with potential to master her power under his tutelage. With Hector's help, Nina's talent blossoms, as does her love for him. But great romances are just fairy tales, and Hector is hiding a truth from Nina and himself that threatens to end their courtship before it really begins. And the last book I got was The Enigma of Womb 622 by Joe Dicker. I'm just going to quickly check if this was translated, because I did not, and yes, it was translated from the French by Robert Bono. I'm so sorry if I butchered that name. But this is about a writer named Joe, who arrives at the Hotel de Vivier, a luxury resort nested in the Swiss Alps. Disheartened over a recent breakup and his longtime publisher's death, Joe hopes the impromptu getaway will be enough to revive his spirits. Before long, he and fellow guest Scarlett uncover a long unsolved murder that transpires in Hotel Room. My word, I can't speak, I'm sorry. Hotel's Room 62. The intent and circumstances, the succession of Switzerland's largest private bank, a mysterious counterintelligence operation called P30, and a more disruptive sabotage of hotel hospitality. So, yeah, that seemed interesting, and I'll do know that. And also, before I left to do my errands, I did do some reading of Black River Orchard, and I'm on page 492, and it is definitely getting strange in the sense people are anyway mutating. Like with Marco, he thinks he's kind of healing from what he went through with the apples until Dan touches him to, and it's like he's just touching his head, but to Marco it's like he's squeezing his head until Dan learns where his daughter is, or well, who knows where his daughter is, because Kyle did run away. And Marco, after this, notices that his teeth are falling out, and in their place are apple seeds. And Meg, like, after she comes back to Emily after the whole witch wolf thing, let's just say she had to be locked up, and she spits out this thing. It's like a worm like creature that Emily tries to capture, and Meg tells her not to. Like, people are mutating and changing in his skin really strange. Like, it seems like Dan is having actual powers. And we see on the other end how Kaya, Emily, and Dan stayed from that night of the whole cult ritual thing. not the second one, the first night with the sacrificing the cow. The fuck, I have to clarify. Oh my, Joanne, like, and as well, Emily's friend John, how they are trying to come up with how to help people, how to end the whole thing. And Kaya, we see, has to accept the fact that her father, like, what did I write in my notes? I definitely articulated better in my notes. Oh yeah, she thinks he cannot be saved, like, after learning that he was already in it way before things got to the point they are. Like, she doesn't think that he can be saved at once. He has this power. He's not gonna want to let it go, and that is something Kaya will have to accept it. In a way, her childhood is ending with her graduating from high school and then going to college. Like, it's like with a physical, I guess, ending, but also a kind of mental ending, I would say. That's not way, but yeah. She is definitely going through a transformative point in her life, and I'm curious to see how that goes. And I'm with her wanting away from her father and not being near him, like, and he does know where she is because the others at school, like, they are still under the spell. So he's still. I'm wondering if this is gonna be like a cat and mouse game, or if, I don't know why. I'm just wondering what's gonna happen next, because you see how then he is looking for her, or he was, but I'm not sure if he's gonna let her go, or if she's gonna play a part of this, if those who've not been consumed by apples will be. Like, it's, I don't know, I'm just curious about what's happening and how far people will go, how far this whole thing will go, really. If people will be turning into trees or whatever, like, I don't know, I'm just definitely intrigued. So, yeah. And I think that's all for now, so I'll see you when So, it's a couple days later, and I didn't intend to film yesterday, but I had quite a long day, and by the time I got home, I was just so tired that I just didn't want to film. Like, sometimes I get so tired that I just don't have the energy to speak, which, yeah, probably it's not good, but yeah, yesterday was, I had some errands I had to run, but for my errands I did have time to go to a tag sale where I did get some bits and pieces. I also went to another book sale. That was on my way to the place where I had to run my errands. And I got 3 books. Notes on an Execution, by Donna Kafka, I believe, or Kafka, or something like that. No, I was in the mood to, like, take the books out and upstairs with me. So I also got, I think it's Pulled from Our Stars by Emma Donoghue, which is a book that came out in 2020. And I also got Albertine Angels by Janice Halliton. Yeah, yesterday was nice and long and quite beautiful until my drive home when it started to downpour. I'm talking about a kind of rain where it's so heavy that you just cannot see anything. So that was fun to drive in. But yeah, I did do some reading today, and this morning before breakfast I did finish Black River Orchard by Chuck Wendig, and I did enjoy seeing the ideas that were explored in the book and really the events that went down. I thought it was interesting. I just didn't feel connected to the story and these characters in any sense. Like, I just didn't really feel really anything for them, unfortunately. So, yeah, I settled on a 3.5 for this one. And with what I read yesterday and today was really like, we see how people who are infected by apples, they're kidnapping their loved ones, like their wives, their husbands, their children, like their family members, and I thought it was gonna go down a sacrificial road, like to show their loyalty to them, to these apples. They're gonna sacrifice their loved ones, the ones who are not, I guess, addicted to these apples, or not consumed by these apples, and really think it really did not. Well, it didn't really go down that route, but it went down the route of like these people are in cages and they're kind of almost forced. Well, not really forced, but they're told they'll be free if they eat apples, and they decide to eat apples. Like, eat apples, I mean. And we see how when Kaya is kidnapped and kept prisoner in the cellar of the family home, her father tells her that they learn that you cannot force someone to eat apples, they have to want it, and that's essentially what's happening. So you see how Kaya is in that situation. You also see how Meg has adopted Emily, put her in a cage, and how Meg is trying to also encourage Emily to eat an apple and the whole thing. We also see Johnny and John, how they're trying to figure out like what to do, how to save their friends, and we learn that John, that there's this original tree where all of the branches of the apple trees in the orchard came from, and in order to kill those trees, you have to kill that original tree, the mother tree, essentially. And John and Walt had a difficult time trying to find it because it was on an island, and it's like a man-made island that's which probably had the names changed, or names been forgotten about by the peoples, and it was founded in the 1700s. Dad knew about it because his father used to take him fishing a lot, so yeah, we see how John is trying to do that, how to destroy the trees and whatnot, and we see how he is able to destroy the tree. And what I found interesting is that when a tree is destroyed and all of the apple trees are destroyed, is the effect it has on people. Like, it like causes everyone who's been consumed by apples to have a reaction, and it's quite a severe reaction. Like, that scene, it was quite gruesome, let's just say. But here we see how that's affected how people, they just want to move on from what happened. Like, people are saying it was like a cult and whatnot, which it was, but they're just, they are kind of, the police are kind of saying it's a cult and forgetting the fact that a lot of their members were part of this cult. And we see how people want to move on, but we also see how it's affecting the group, like how it's affecting Kaya, especially after what happened to her, like her woe and ending the whole thing, and what she lost in it, and seeing how it's affected everyone is quite interesting. And we finally learned some answers about the man in the white suit, how he orchestrated the whole thing, and how to him it's not over. Like, he will try again. Like, we learn what he is, essentially. I'm not gonna say that, but I kind of like to look at this ambiguous, like, ending this ambiguous character and seeing like why he encouraged people to eat apples or to plant apples, like how he used the fact people thought they lost everything when they didn't, and how he manipulated them. So yeah, overall this was an interesting read, but I just didn't feel connected to it. Like, I don't know, like, I will keep my book this because I can see myself coming back to it in the future, just because I did find ideas intriguing, and yeah, and overall, yeah. And yeah, I think that's all for me on this book, and that's actually the end of this video. So if you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment below telling me what you've been up to recently. If you want to, please subscribe to this channel, and if you want to follow me on any social media, then all those links are in the down bar below. I'll see you guys next time I post a video. Bye.